I have two childhood sweethearts I grew up with. One is studying for a master's degree at Linda, living a celibate life. She hasn't returned for a year. The other has had an arranged marriage with me since birth. I understood from a young age that she was my future wife. So I have always meticulously guarded her side. But I never expected that it would become a burden for her. Today she finally couldn't hold back her anger. During a family dinner, both families mentioned our engagement. Shen Xinyue stood up and slammed the table. She pointed at me and shouted, "It's all your fault for following me every day. I can't even speak or scold you. You keep shamelessly following me. It's causing everyone to misunderstand. From now on, stay away from me. It's just so annoying." I was dumbfounded by her words. The shrimp I was going to give her fell to the ground. Her words were very harsh. There's no difference between that and publicly accusing me of being overly sentimental. Everyone's attention made my face look terrible. My throat felt like it was choked and painfully constricted. We had been together for 18 years, day and night. I gave her all my affection. But all I got in return was her saying I was shameless. And she said it in front of so many people. It felt like she crushed my face and dignity into the ground. My parents looked extremely pale. They probably didn't expect it either. The girl they watched grow up would treat their son like this in public. Shen Xinyue's father was the first to react. He quickly scolded her. "Xinyue, how can you speak like that?" Shen Xinyue frowned and shouted loudly, "Why can't I speak? To me, he is just the boy next door. I could never marry him. I don't like him at all. I want to date and marry someone I actually like. You have no right to arrange my marriage." After saying that, she threw down her chopsticks and was about to leave. Uncle Shen glanced at my parents, then looked at me awkwardly standing by the table. Angrily, he took 2 steps to catch up. He directly slapped Shen Xinyue. With a crisp sound, slap. It shook me all over. This was the first time I saw Uncle Shen hit her. I instinctively rushed over to try to help her up, but she suddenly pushed me away. I stumbled back a few steps. She looked at me with red eyes and gritted her teeth. "Are you satisfied now?" I instantly widened my eyes. Seeing her wipe her tears and about to leave, I grabbed her. "What do you mean by that? It's better to clarify." The way she looks at me now. Aside from calmness, there's also celebration. "You still have the face to ask me to clarify? If it weren't for you shamelessly following me every day, they could have arranged for you and me to be together. I have never liked you. Don't be so self-righteous, okay? Chen, I'm begging you. Let me have a way out, please." Tian looked at me in shock. Finally replied. Finally, and during the humiliation, I sincerely replied, "I will remember your words clearly. I, Zhang Haochen, swear here. From now on, I will never entangle myself with Shen Xinyue again." From that day on, I didn't say a word to her. The next day at school, I was like a stranger to her. As I stepped into the classroom, Shen Xinyue followed shortly after. In the past, she was always ahead of me. Now, I am ahead and she is behind. Classmates have always loved to tease us too. They say Shen Xinyue and I are like lovebirds, never alone. When they see us appear one after the other, several classmates in the class tease, "Our lovebirds have arrived." They usually say that too. Hearing this only makes me feel happy. And now those words haven't changed. My mindset completely changed. I instinctively turned to look at Shen Xinyue. She had a cold expression on her face. She walked to her seat and sat down. She took out a workbook and started to work on it. Looking at her indifferent expression, my heart felt like it was being pricked by needles. Some words, once said, cannot be taken back. "Since you want to cut off ties with me, then I'll help you with that." I placed my backpack behind my seat. I stood on the podium. I clarified my relationship with her to my classmates for the first time. "Oh dear. Shen Xinyue and I are neighbors. Going to school with her. It's just because our families live close together. Caused everyone to misunderstand. Apart from being neighbors, Shen Xinyue and I. Everyone please do not speculate randomly. And don't joke about us anymore. Thank you." When leaving, I saw the surprised and confused gazes of my classmates. As I passed by Shen Xinyue, I noticed her expression became even worse. The classmates didn't believe what I said on the podium. It's been 7 years. We were inseparable. In the end, everyone believed it was just a little couple's quarrel. Once we reconcile, we'll naturally return to our previous state. The third period in the afternoon is gym class. Senior students grind away at their textbooks and exercise books every day. Everyone was so exhausted they were seeing stars. The homeroom teacher was afraid we would become depressed again. Whenever it's gym class, we are all herded to the playground. Let's go exercise to relieve our stress. I was playing ball on the basketball court. About 20 minutes later, suddenly, a female classmate ran to the basketball court. She shouted anxiously, Haochen, Haochen." Shen Xinyue tripped while running during class. She bled a lot from her injury. "You should go check on her. I heard she got injured." I got flustered in the heat of the moment. I dashed to the playground. Maybe for over 10 years. I have always followed her around like a simp. I've become used to it. So that whenever I hear about her, I would rush over. A circle of people surrounded the center of the playground. A classmate shouted loudly, "Make way quickly." When my classmates heard I was coming, they cleared a special path for me. Shen Xinyue suddenly looked up. She gazed over from a distance. A fleeting emotion passed through her clear eyes. She looked delicate and vulnerable. I instinctively reached out my hand to care for her. But in the next moment, I suddenly became alert. I pressed my lips together and said, "Just take her to the school nurse to be treated." After leaving those words, I turned around and left without hesitation. My departure surprised everyone. They immediately began a heated discussion after I left. They said all sorts of things. I pretended not to hear any of it. I didn't stop or look back. And just like that, we became like ordinary classmates. Over half a month. They were together for a month. Although I felt a bit lonely. But more of it is freedom and ease. One day after evening study, I went home alone. Shen Xinyue walked out from the other side of the corner. She stood still in front of me. I didn't want to have anything to do with her anymore. I took a step to the right to leave. Unexpectedly, she adjusted her step to follow mine, blocking my path again. I felt a bit irritated. I tried to make my gaze appear calm and indifferent. Is there something? Upon hearing this, Shen Xinyue replied flatly. Something. Can't I wait for you? Weren't we going home together every day before? I smiled calmly. If it's something, I'm leaving first. Seeing that, I stepped aside and walked away. She quickly grabbed my left arm. Brother Chen, is it necessary to be this absolute? I glanced at her. Please clear the way. I'm home. Shen Xinyue glared at me through gritted teeth. What do you want from me? Do you want to cut ties with me for good? I just spoke a few harsh words. Why have you been so petty for so long? When did you become so small-minded? Want to draw a clear line with me? You might as well just move away. Wouldn't it be a more definitive separation? Upon hearing this, I calmly nodded. I quietly nodded. My dad is looking for a house. But buying a new house is not a small matter. It's not practical. I'm afraid it can't be resolved anytime soon. I'll push my dad again when I get back. Don't worry. Even if I can't move right away, I won't bother you anymore. You really mean it? Shen Xinyue's expression turned sour. She stared at me for a long while. After confirming that I wasn't just angry, she huffed and threw down 3 words. Then she turned and walked away without looking back. After that, the two families resumed normal interactions. Although it wasn't as enthusiastic as before, there has always been a barrier between Shen Xinyue and me. New Year's Day has arrived. My mom originally planned to celebrate at our home. Aunt Shen and Uncle Shen kept inviting us over. My dad and mom tried every possible way to decline. In the end, they had no choice but to agree. It doesn't matter. I plan to stay home all day studying. But Shen Xinyue took the initiative to find me. Brother Hao Chen. Actually, I came to say sorry to you. I was wrong that day. I shouldn't have said that to you. Although I don't like you. But I've never hated you. No matter when in the future. I will always treat you as a good brother. I turned my head and looked at her coldly. So? Brother Chen. Let's still go to school together from now on. Otherwise, my mom and aunt will worry about us. I gritted my teeth. This is simply like reopening my wounds. I had finally managed to forget a little. You've come to remind me again. The college entrance exam is approaching. The burden I've carried for over a decade suddenly returned. I slept deeply for 2 days, feeling relaxed. 4 days after the college entrance exam, Shen Xinyue came to my house to see me. As soon as I opened the door, she smiled sweetly at me. Our sleeping beauty has finally woken up. Her voice carried a hint of teasing. After saying that, she leaned closer. She naturally sat down on the sofa beside me. I don't know how long it's been. The dynamic between us had been cold as ice. Now, her sudden closeness felt unfamiliar. I felt strange. I instinctively moved away to the side. Shen Xinyue looked at me with burning eyes. Brother Chen, how did you do? How did you do on the exam? Her voice carried a kind of excitement I didn't understand. I turned my head slightly and replied casually. It went okay. Then I fidgeted with a small ornament on the table. Keep myself further away from her. Perhaps she noticed my indifference. Shen Xinyue leaned forward a bit more. Brother Chen, tell me the truth. Are you still angry with me? I looked up at her, puzzled. Shen Xinyue stared at me for a while. She smiled helplessly. Brother Hao Chen, let's apply to the same school. We can go to school together in the future. In that case, I immediately interrupted her. I haven't decided which university to apply to yet. Shen Xinyue pouted. This conversation ended without resolution. She didn't get my final answer. She left with a bit of regret. During dinner in the evening, Shen Xinyue came again. She brought 2 plates of steaming dumplings. Auntie, the chive and egg dumplings just came out of the pot. It smells delicious. My mom remembers that Hao Chen loves it. You all eat while it's hot. My mom smiled as she took the dumplings. After sending Shen Xinyue off, my mom brought up the topic of college applications again at the dining table. Little Chen, it's better for you to apply to the same school as Shen Xinyue. Regardless, you two grew up together. You are familiar with each other. You can also support each other. I didn't answer upon hearing this. In fact, I had my own thoughts long ago. The day after the college entrance exam when I returned to school to check answers, I saw Shen Xinyue hiding in a corner with a boy. He was a transfer student from the class next door named Song Wai. I had seen Shen Xinyue walking with him several times before. The two said they wanted to apply to the same university. Because Song Wai wants to be her knight. To protect Shen Xinyue forever. I glanced at the two of them lightly. Then I turned around and left. I have given all my feelings from 18 years ago to Shen Xinyue. From now on, I want to be myself. So I will not attend the same university as them. Shen Xinyue chose her desired university. She excitedly ran to my room. Hao Chen brother, have you chosen your university? I glanced at her and replied. I have chosen. Shen Xinyue instantly became excited. Is it Jing University? I heard that Jing University is expanding enrollment this year. Your grades will definitely get you in. I did not answer but retorted. Song Nan will also go to Jing University. Although I already knew the answer, I still opened my mouth to ask. Just for that almost non-existent possibility. Shen Xinyue paused for a moment and then smiled. Yes. He said he wants to go to Jing University with me. I closed my eyes, also covering the pain in my heart. Shen Xinyue's smile gradually faded. She stared at the fake smile on my face. Thank you, brother Haochen. She has apologized too many times. But a few light words cannot make up for the scars in my heart. I smiled faintly. In the last minute before clicking confirm, I changed the school name from Jingda to Linda, a prestigious university in the north. I'm not going to Jingda anymore. That's my best choice. The day the admission notice arrived, Shen Xinyue ran to my house with her admission notice. She shouted to see mine. Brother Chen, bring your admission notice so I can appreciate it. This is mine. You should take a look too. I calmly handed her my admission notice. She stared at the name of the school. Her eyes widened in surprise. Shen Qingli was shocked and surprised. I have always followed her wishes since childhood. She seemed not to expect that I would make a decision against her wishes on such an important matter. I would make a decision contrary to her intentions. Smiling softly, I'm no longer a person who knows how to do things. Shen Xinyue looked at me with a bit of disbelief. Why? She leaned her face closer to me. There seemed to be a hint of hurt in her eyes. I smiled lightly. I also didn't look at her to see her reaction. The teacher said that the traditional Chinese painting major there is more suitable for me. After I finished speaking, I didn't look into her eyes again. I didn't see her hear me. What will her expression be after this answer? Shen Xinyue looked a bit sad. Bring your face close to me. Look at me. Do you still care about what I said that day? Have you been blaming me all along? You haven't forgiven me. I was just talking nonsense that day. Can you forget? Upon hearing this, I felt a pang in my heart. I can't forget. You hurt me so deeply. How could I not notice? How could I easily forget? Losing love is already painful enough. I cannot afford to lose anymore. Thinking of this, I smiled softly and looked at her and said, that day's feelings, I've long forgotten. Shen Xinyue's face looked quite unpleasant. She pressed her lips and turned to leave. I don't understand. I've already come this far. What more could she be dissatisfied with? On the night I received the acceptance letter, my mom cried and asked if I wanted to repeat the year, and then take the exam for Jingda next year. At least it would be good to take the exam for that key university in the city. After all, it's closer. It makes it easier to take care of, and saves them from worrying about me day and night. I understand my mother's hardships. But what about my own struggles? I want to forget her, and start anew. I need an environment suitable for forgetting. I didn't say anything. Just looked at my mom eagerly. Lin Da is pretty good. The traditional Chinese painting program at Jingda is even more prestigious. You should study well there. Strive to get into the combined master's and doctoral program. Your parents and I will retire in a few years. If you want to stay there, after graduation, we'll buy you a place. Your parents and I will move over to accompany you. My dad patted my mom gently. Don't cry. Isn't Shen Qingli over there? She has someone to look after her there with Hao Chen. I felt the warmth and love from my parents. The melancholy and reluctance buried in my heart gradually faded away. At that time, I was completely focused. I wanted to escape from Shen Xinyue's side. When filling out my preferences, I only followed my own thoughts. In fact, the Shen family has another daughter. She is pursuing her master's degree at Linda University, which I chose. Some things may be destined. After going in circles, I still have to live around the Shen family. Fortunately, that person is no longer Shen Xinyue, but instead, it is Shen Qingli, who has always treated me like a younger brother. Shen Xinyue left a day earlier than I did. I really wanted to send her off. But then I thought about the words she had said. I just didn't have the courage to step outside the door. I could only sneak a look at her through the peephole in the door. Shen Xinyue was pushing a suitcase in her hand. She stood in front of my house for a full 2 minutes. Until Uncle Shen urged her. Then she finally lifted her foot to leave. I was on this side of the door, watching her step by step leave my home. Step by step walking out of my world. In the end, she and I separated. My feelings that I could never express. University life was busy. When I had free time, I occasionally wondered what Shen Xinyue was doing. I thought about what she was doing now. Did she remember me? Ever since I was born, I had been apart from her for so long. This made me feel very uncomfortable. My heart felt like porridge. My heart felt empty. To distract myself, I joined several clubs. I went to volunteer whenever I had free time. I kept myself busy like a top. Every day I was exhausted. I'd climb into bed and fall asleep immediately. After we reported separately, we would also keep in touch. It's Shen Xinyue who asks me how I'm doing through messages. She wants me to send some photos for her to see. I try hard to suppress my feelings. Each reply is just a few indifferent words. As for the photos she wants, I don't understand. Does she want photos of me or the school? I believe it's more likely the latter. So I took many photos with cultural features to send her. Later, we stopped contacting each other. We didn't speak a word for months. She has a boy she likes by her side. I don't want to cause misunderstandings. Nor do I want my personal information to affect her life. So no matter how much I miss her, I held back. I took the initiative to send her a message. Just before the winter break, she reached out to me once, asking when I would go back. I held my phone, staring at those few simple words for a long time. I typed a string of words back on my phone screen. I haven't decided yet. Besides, it's not on the way anyway. Don't worry about me. Shen Xinyue posted on her moments. Just wrote 5 words. We're going home. Below are 2 pictures. One is the booking record for 2 plane tickets. The other is a picture of 2 hands holding each other. My heart feels so painful. So I picked up my suitcase alone. Set off on the way home. The winter break at the northern school is relatively long. I can comfortably spend more time at home. I can also eat the meals my mom cooks every day. This is what I've dreamed of most at school. Shen Xinyue returned a few days earlier than me, until after I returned. She would occasionally come to my house to sit for a while, and chat with me. Every time she came, she would be smiling. She would tell me about the interesting events at school. I told her about the heavy snow in the north, and the long, straight icicles under the eaves. Most of the time, she quietly listened. Occasionally, she would show a faint smile. Sometimes she would remind me to keep warm and not catch a cold. Sometimes I say, take care of yourself while you're there alone. I attribute everything she does and says to the relationship of a younger sister and an older brother. I don't dare to think too much or let it sink in. Anyway, I still live my life alone. Everything else is just trivial. One day she came in. I was resting my legs on the coffee table, biting into a watermelon like crazy. I got watermelon all over the place. She rolled her eyes at me. She went to the bathroom and brought me a wet towel, tossing it to me. Her tone was quite disdainful. Look at the way you eat. How uncouth. Which girl would want to be with you? My heart ached suddenly. So you treat my affection like garbage and trample on it? Is that why you've reduced me to such a state? Shen Xinyue, please stay away from me. I beg you. When the spring festival comes, both families still gather together as before. Our family of 3 was taken in by Uncle Shen a long time ago. The windows are decorated with paper cuttings. Small colorful lights are hanging on the balcony. The occasional firecracker sounds from outside all add to the festive atmosphere. I had nothing to do. A few times I wanted to go home and nest in my little room. I was all held back by Aunt Shen. She wanted me to go to Shen Xinyue's room to play with her. I didn't go. Instead, I curled up in the corner of the sofa, alone with my phone. What happens in the future is like a sharp knife, always hanging over my head. I didn't dare to forget even a little. Shen Xinyue apologized for this, but I couldn't get past that hurdle in my heart. This seems to be a non-translatable character and is omitted. I didn't know if I was being too petty like this. All I know is that there has always been a long scar that keeps bleeding in my heart. At that moment, my phone was suddenly taken away. I was still watching an anime. Shen Xinyue had one hand hanging on the armrest of the sofa beside me. A hand raised my phone to my face. Look at my phone screen. I reached out to grab the phone. Hurry and give it back to me. She quickly pulled her hand back. She made a face at me. Then she turned around and ran away quickly. I want the phone. Come to my room to get it. I don't want to go to her room. Even less do I want to chase after her. But thinking of all the photos of her saved on my phone. If she sees them, she might think too much. I had no choice but to get up and find her to use her phone. When I got over there, she was already sitting at the table. Come in and let's watch together. She was smiling happily. There were stars shining in her eyes. I shouted from the door. I'm not going in. You bring it out to me. I'm afraid to go in now. Hee. Brother Chen. How did you become so thin-skinned? I looked at her and said lightly. Watch the anime you like for now. I can watch TV too. After saying that, I turned around and was about to leave. She called out to stop me with discontent. You're not that sensitive, are you? Can't even make a joke. Really as petty as him. Here you go. Here you go. Delete those accumulated photos one by one. I opened my phone's photo album. I hurriedly answered. My peripheral vision caught her face. That kind of atmosphere makes me feel a bit headache. Suddenly, I didn't know how to get along with her. The phone is in my hand. But I no longer have the heart to follow the series. But rather, I keep chewing over what she just said. Who is he referring to? Shen Xinyue has had a unique personality since childhood. Doesn't like to interact with boys. I am unique by her side. He knows without thinking that it is Song Y. After understanding, she tossed the phone to me. Just like I seem willing to see. Around 9 o'clock. Shen Qingli called me on a video call. We chatted lively for quite a while. At this moment, Aunt Shen shouted at me. Hao Chen, come quickly. Your sister Qingli is calling on video. She has something to say to you. On the phone screen. Shen Qingli quietly watched me. A hint of a smile hidden in her eyes. Chen. I've been following Professor Shaw to collect materials outside. I can pick you up. How are you doing at school? I smiled and nodded, saying, it's pretty good. After more than a year, Qingli seems even more mature now. In those starry sparkling eyes, there was a glimmer of light. Shen Xinyue has grown quite beautiful. She looks even better than Shen Xinyue. Shen Qingli's charming mature voice carries a hint of concern. Are you not used to the food? Why have you lost so much weight? I shook my head and said, no. I actually like northern cuisine. Especially the guo bao ru. Maybe my cravings have pleased Sister Qingli. She raised her eyebrows and broke into a big smile. With a heart full of affection. I will go back in March or April. The exhibition in March or April. I'll treat you to guo bao ru then. Qingli's call made this New Year's Eve night much happier for me. These days are temporary. Soon it will be time to start school again. Under the strong intervention of my mom and Aunt Shen, she and I booked flights for the same day. When we arrived at the airport, Song Y was standing by the roadside smiling and waiting. Shen Xinyue escaped from her parents' gaze. Become very happy. She happily ran over and fell into Song Y's arms. People in love. Truly, a day apart feels like 3 autumns. Not looking. A person picked up their luggage and entered the hall. This semester's workload is much heavier than last semester's. I eliminated all distracting thoughts. Fully immersed myself in studying. Gradually I found that my heart calmed down. I participated in a competition organized by the department. My grades were surprisingly high. It caused quite a stir in the entire department. The professor appreciated my painting very much. She asked me to paint an impressionistic bird in my own style. She said that if the painting was good, she would take it to some exhibition for display, and accept me as her graduate student. This professor holds a very high position in the world of traditional Chinese painting. No translation needed, seems to be incomplete or a fragment. Being personally guided by her in painting is simply the ultimate dream for students. It took me over a month before I finally completed the painting, nervously handing it to the professor. She was having a video conference with someone. Just as I was about to back away, Professor Shaw waved for me to come in. She picked up my painting and showcased it on the screen. She asked the people on the other end to critique it one by one. It was only after the meeting ended that I learned that they were students from the professor's research institute. She was guiding their course research online. She is guiding their coursework online. Without a doubt, my painting received extremely high praise again. The professor asked me to add one of the girls on the other end as a contact. They said our paintings each have unique features that complement each other. To have me share more insights about traditional Chinese painting with her. Professor, I have his contact information. A pleasant, mature voice entered my ears. Very familiar. Professor Shaw looked a bit puzzled. Do you know each other? The professor held the phone out in front of me. Smiled. It's Sister Qingli. She was smiling at me from the other side of the screen. He is my younger brother. Pay attention in class. I will go back soon. I'll treat you to some delicious food. Sister Qingli's smile was very gentle, always pampering me as usual. And Professor Shaw praised my talent to anyone he met. In her words, I became a rare talent. Almost overnight, I became a prominent figure both in the play and in the entire school. Ranked among the top 3 on the school's popularity list. Even my personal photo was posted on the big board. This made most people in the school recognize me. After that, more people started coming to me for drawing. There are both paid and unpaid ones. I'm extremely busy all day. My mood is gradually becoming brighter. Sister Qingli is 3 years older than me. In the past, I spoiled Shen Xinyue meticulously, and I have been enjoying Shen Qingli's care. I don't know much about her. Now I've had more contact with her. I found out she is quite an interesting person. Qingli occasionally discuss some knowledge about traditional Chinese painting with me. She will pass on some of her experiences to me. Sometimes, she will send me her paintings. We appreciate them together. I also seek her advice when I encounter a bottleneck. She often gives me the most honest advice. Let me line up. Because of our similar interests and hobbies, I get along very well with her in our conversations. It's particularly easy to get along with her. Sometimes, I squeeze out some time. I will check my social media to strengthen my ability to cope. Shen Xinyue has changed from her previous indifference. She was almost posting about her happy life every day. It was either a small drink for 2 or a handholding date. Boxes of supplies were being sent in waves. It made my throat feel bitter. I wanted to enjoy the sweet and sour pork that Sister Qingli treated me to. But Qingli's return was delayed again and again. I had to go eat with my roommate twice. Soon, it was summer vacation time. Shen Xinyue didn't contact me. I didn't disturb her either. Once again, I set off alone with my backpack on the road home. I think I've gotten used to life without her. The plane took off at night. I got home around 6 a.m. There was no time to talk to my parents. There was no time to talk to Pei. After class, I dove into bed for a nap, waiting for me to wake up from the chaotic dreams. It was already noon. My mom was bringing the dishes she had prepared to the table. Seeing that I was awake, waiting for me to come over for a meal, I looked at my mom and said, Mom, I want to eat cold noodles tonight. My mom shook her head and said, Another day. Tonight, Aunt Shen is treating us to cold noodles. Dinner is at the newly opened private restaurant at the corner. Because I arrived late. When I entered the private room, there was only one empty seat left for me. I hadn't had time to sit properly yet. Shen Xin spoke up. Brother Hao Chen, you are the slowest. The whole family is waiting for you. I lifted my eyelids and was about to speak. A personal knife pierced into my eyes. I could barely breathe. She has matured a lot since I last saw her half a year ago. There is an unspoken tenderness in her eyes. Shen Xinyue had a shy, coy smile, leaning on Song Wai's arm. Song Wai was holding her hand. There was no gap between them, as they were very close. My eyes hurt so much and my heart hurt even more. She brought him back to meet the parents. The memories of me and Shen Xinyue that only belong to me. At this moment, everything comes to a halt. There is no longer any meaning in existence. For a moment, I was confused and at a loss. Auntie greeted me warmly. Hao Chen, take a seat. What do you like to eat? Auntie will order for you. I sat in my seat in a daze. Right across from me were the 2 sweetly reliant people. At this moment, I really wanted to harm my own eyes. Shen Xinyue looked at Song Wai with a gaze that was both gentle and sweet. This is the neighbor boy I often tell you about. Yuan accompanies Chen. Brother Hao Chen. This is my boyfriend, Song Wai. Of course I recognize him. He is a classmate of ours. The transfer student from out of town, undoubtedly the school hunk. His gentleness and delicacy. It's a world of difference from my blunt personality. Girls probably all like this. I nodded slightly and said okay. Uncle Shen and Auntie Shen know about Song Wai's family matters. They are very unhappy. After the banquet started, she kept serving me food. She ignored Song Wai completely. Song Wai was a bit awkward. Shen Xinyue kept whispering words of comfort to him. My parents, feeling this was a family matter for the Shen family, couldn't really look into it more. As for me, I started feeling uneasy from the very beginning. There was only one dish. We had nearly finished eating. I put down my chopsticks and bowl. I stepped out to a small terrace to get some fresh air. I didn't want to see them showing off their affection. After a while, a flurry of light and chaotic footsteps stopped outside the terrace. I didn't want to be discovered. Silently, I inched back inside a little further. At this moment, Aunt Shen's voice rang out. Yue, what is so good about that Song Wai to make you so steadfast? You will need a political review to graduate and enter a state-owned enterprise. Can his family handle it? In every aspect, how can he compare to Hao Chen? Why must you choose him? I was taken aback. I really wanted to leave this place. After all, it was a family matter. No one knows how much. This will never be known. Unfortunately, the terrorist can't remain dead. Shen Xinyue is clearly deeply in love with Song Wai. She lowered her voice and argued with her aunt, disregarding everything. Song Wai stood by helplessly, watching everything that happened over here. Although he wore a smile on his face, the smile inexplicably carried a hint of humility. There was a moment. I surprisingly felt a bit of sympathy for him. In fact, what wrong did he do? What do his parents' issues have to do with him? He simply met a girl he liked. As for the little issue between Shen Xinyue and me, it really has nothing to do with them. Furthermore, in fact, neither Shen Xinyue nor Song Wai is wrong. They just want to live the life they love. I couldn't help but smile self-deprecatingly. Why can I find reasons for everyone? To find no wrong reasons for everyone? Yet I can't redeem myself. Outside, Shen Xinyue clearly cannot control her emotions. Her voice keeps rising. Can you please think about me? The person I like is Song Wai. Zhang Haochen is just a neighbor. He is just a neighbor. At most, he can be considered my neighbor brother. I do not like her. I do not like her now. I will not be able to like her in the future either. I don't want to listen to this anymore. I don't want to deal with this anymore. 19 years, once again, ruthlessly denied. Aunt Shen's face turned pale with anger. She raised her hand to strike. I stepped out onto the balcony and grabbed Aunt's arm. Aunt's expression changed instantly. The guilt in her eyes. Like the sea is about to drown me. Shen Xinyue turned back to look at me with a cold gaze. I do not know where the coldness in her gaze comes from, and why it is being directed at me. I self-deprecatingly smiled and patted Aunt's hand. Aunt, I do not like Shen Xinyue. She doesn't like me either. We can never be together. Besides, I already have someone I like. We're doing well now. After saying this, I instinctively looked up at the sky. At this point, I can only use this excuse to maintain my dignity. The people in the private room probably noticed we hadn't returned for a while. They all came out to look for us. At this time, they were all standing at the door of the private room. And the last nonsense I said, they all heard it. Everyone was looking at me. Their expressions were very shocked. That night, I lay in bed, unable to sleep for a long time. The pain in my chest kept spreading. Around midnight, Shen Xinyue sent me a message. Do you really have a girlfriend? Who is she? I stared at the phone screen. I watched it for a long time without blinking. Then I put my phone on silent and threw it to the foot of the bed. I didn't reply. The next morning, I had big panda eyes. I made plans to go hiking with a few high school classmates. After what happened yesterday, I really didn't want to see Shen Xinyue. But our families live too close to each other. If I want to avoid her, I can only hide away. Wait until I get myself ready. I opened the door. Just then, Shen Xinyue was at the door putting on her shoes while holding onto Song Wai. I greeted them briefly. I didn't plan to say much. I said. At this moment, I spoke up. I called a cab downstairs. I was taken aback for a moment. You guys too? Shen Xinyue glanced at me sideways. There was a strong hint of mockery in her eyes. What else would it be? Am I supposed to let you be alone? I only felt a chill in my heart. Why do you guys need to make a fuss about climbing the mountain? Can't you just let me have some peace? But this event was initiated by me. I definitely can't back out halfway. A few classmates gathered at the foot of the mountain. They are all people I usually get along well with. This is our first gathering since summer vacation. The friendship among boys is simple and pure. We hugged each other's shoulders, laughing and shouting. Delighted to no end. They all know the little issues between Shen Xinyue and me. They often joke that I was a perfect match with her. In everyone's eyes, I was meant to be with Shen Xinyue. But Shen Xinyue was holding another boy's hand right in front of me. They couldn't quite understand it. They kept giving me knowing looks. The fire of gossip was burning fiercely, and I could only smile wryly. Shen Xinyue, you should introduce her to everyone. My high school classmate, Kei Zhen, speaks his mind. He yelled at the top of his lungs. Shen Xinyue, when did she get a boyfriend? My feelings for Shen Xinyue. These brothers know everything clearly. The incident when she publicly scolded me back then. They were all in the know, and even scolded Shen Xinyue for several days because of it. That guy, Kei Zhen, is very protective of me. Surely, he's trying to get me justice in his own way. I smiled wryly in resignation. This guy really knows how to poke at the sore spot. Shen Xinyue was clearly displeased. Kei Zhen continued to make sarcastic remarks. Aren't you too? Before he could finish speaking, Lu Yu covered his mouth. What are you talking about? Hurry up and climb the mountain. Climbing the mountain is a physical task. I walked to the halfway point of the mountain. One by one, they became exhausted. We sat under the shade of a tree to rest and cool off. They all surrounded me, wanting to say something but hesitating. That desire to speak but fear of hurting my feelings. It was both funny and heartwarming. Fortunately, I had them today. Otherwise, Shen Xinyue would definitely treat me like a dog. I looked at this group of friends seriously and said, I'm only going to say this once. From now on, no one can ever. The betrothal from back then was just an old joke from the previous generation. She has always seen me as an older brother. It was I who misunderstood. Song Wai is the one she likes. Upon hearing this, Kei Zhen looked at me and asked, what about you, Hao Chen? Don't tell us. Your feelings for her are fake. I helplessly shook my head and said, a forced relationship is not sweet. They cannot bear to see me alone. Does your family have any cousins or relatives? You could introduce them to me. Upon hearing this, Lu Yu spoke up. It must be very hard for you, right? I turned my head to look at a blooming little daisy in the distance. It took a long time to respond. It will pass. The crowd sighed in unison. They all lamented how unpredictable life is. Then, in high spirits, they continued to say, after returning, cast a wide net. Find Hao Chen a girlfriend who is 100 times better than Shen Xinyue. I couldn't resist them. I had to let them ramble on. After much difficulty climbing to the base of the mountain, a few people were clamoring to go to the only shop to get ice. I caught a glimpse of Shen Xinyue and Song Wai who arrived first, holding a box of raspberries on a bench under the tree. You feed me one, I feed you one. I don't want to put my eyes through this torture. I turned and walked in the opposite direction. Kei Zhen followed me closely. Couldn't help but murmur softly. Shen Xinyue is both heartless and blind. She will definitely regret it later. That Song Wai is not simple at all. Your foolish personality. How can he be her match? Kei Zhen had an indignant look on his face. After he finished performing, I finally told him, Shen Xinyue and I have long been a thing. Don't bring it up again. Kei Zhen gritted his teeth and criticized me for being useless. He was disappointed in me, wishing I could do better. At this moment, Lu Yu called. He said they discovered a tree growing over there. A peach tree laden with fruit on the cliff. Wanted us to go take a look. A peach tree growing on a cliff is very rare. Kei Zhen and I hurried over to see the novelty. On the slope in the east facing the sunrise, there indeed rose a super large peach tree leaning obliquely against the cliff. I looked at the peach branch, which was very close to me. It seemed that I could just reach out my hand to grab it. I climbed up with a playful spirit. Ignoring my brother's Zhu Lan, I reached out to grab a protruding peach branch. I don't know if it's a problem with my character, or if the railing was worn out from age. It was not strong enough to bear my weight. I felt a wave of dizziness, and I fell down headfirst. Perhaps it was not my fate to die. At a moment of life and death, I quickly reached out and grabbed a vine that was sticking out of the rock crevice. That stopped my fall and left me hanging in midair. Kei Zhen and the others were shouting something above. My ears were buzzing. I couldn't hear anything clearly. This is a scenic area. The rescue team on the mountain arrived quickly. When I was rescued from halfway up the mountain by two people, Shen Xinyue hurriedly ran towards me. Hao Chen, how are you? Are you hurt? I have varying degrees of injuries on my arms and legs. A sense of fear filled my emotions. Song Wai squatted between me and her. He stopped the arm Shen Xinyue extended towards me. Gently comforting words. See. Don't worry. Hao Chen will be fine. I just got out of danger. The rescue team carried me down the mountain. The ambulance has arrived. A few brothers sat in the cabin with me. The ambulance whizzed towards the hospital. From the time I came down the mountain until I was carried onto the ambulance, Song Wai carefully held Shen Xinyue's hand the entire time. Following behind us, only my old brother surrounded me. At this moment, I was completely chilled. The ambulance stopped at the hospital entrance. I saw my parents rush over like crazy. Two pairs of tearful eyes make my heart ache. I ran out to find peace for Shen Xinyue. Yet she turns a blind eye to my injury. After 4 days in the hospital, my parents have been by my side every step of the way. Uncle Shen and Auntie come every day too. They bring fruits and meals. They've endured quite a bit of exhaustion. I feel embarrassed. I think I understand their intentions. They are trying to make up for me with their actions. Shen Xinyue knows I am injured. Yet she hasn't come to see me at all. It's impossible not to feel disappointed. On the afternoon of the third day in the hospital, I just woke up from my nap. I heard a suppressed argument at the door. The voices are very familiar. It's Shen Xinyue and Song Wai, but it's just separated by a door. I can't hear too clearly. It seems that Shen Xinyue came to visit me, but Song Wai doesn't allow it. The two of them are causing a scene in front of the ward door. I'm being discharged from the hospital tomorrow. It doesn't matter anymore whether she comes to see me or not. I fell asleep again while listening. Both families mobilized when I was being discharged. They crowded the ward chaotically. Uncle Shen and Aunt Shen were packing things up. My mom dressed me. My dad knelt on the ground to tie my shoelaces. There was love in the air. And there was such sweet family love as well. I am actually very rich. Shen Xinyue stood at a distance. Next to her was a not-so-happy Song Wai. He tried to come help a few times but was stopped by him. I had to just stand there and keep him company. Shen Xinyue would occasionally take time to glance at me. Her gaze contained some concern, to some extent. Most of the time, she was whispering something to Song Wai. Song Wai kept glancing over at me. His expression was full of reluctance. I think it must have been Aunt Shen insisting that Shen Xinyue come to pick me up. Song Wai is unwilling. But he doesn't dare to refuse her. Therefore, he has a quarrel with Shen Xinyue. The doctor said my external injuries are fine upon discharge. I just need to rest for a few more days. Therefore, after returning home, my mom firmly doesn't allow us. So I lay at home for a while. Not moving. Not active. I feel like my legs are going numb. Just having fun. Shen Xinyue's call came in. I calmed down. Frowning, I thought about whether to answer. If I accidentally. My finger accidentally unlocked the phone. Shen Xinyue's voice came through clearly from the screen. Hao Chen brother. I frowned and said, is there something? Shen Xinyue replied. I came to see you. Isn't this because I'm worried about you? I've come several times. Aunt won't let me see you. I've been thinking about you the whole time. From what I've observed, Aunt is fine. Quickly open the door and let me in. Upon hearing this, I said, my wound hurts. Actually, I'm right by the door. There was a hint of determination on Shen Xinyue's face. Take your time getting up. When will you open it? When will I go inside? It wouldn't be good if I kept asking and didn't open the door. After thinking about it, it would be better to let her in. I walked over slowly. I instantly regretted opening the door. I thought she was alone. As a result, Song Wai stood next to her with his arm around her shoulder. I was feeling dizzy. I secretly cursed myself for being too generous, although I almost regretted it deeply. But now that they're here, I can't keep rejecting people at the door anymore. Please come in. I specifically used a word. Shen Xinyue quickly glanced at me, holding Song Wai's hand. She turned to the side and squeezed in next to me. Then he casually sat down on the sofa. Song Wai was right next to her. The two of them were like conjoined twins. I couldn't help but complain wildly in my heart. I know you both are in love. There's no need to show off to me all the time, is there? But on the surface, I still politely went to the kitchen to cut fruit for the guests. Brother Chen. That day you had an accident. I found out too late. I rushed to save you. I smiled and shook my head. Saying, it's not your responsibility anyway. What are you apologizing for? It's okay. Hearing this, Shen Xinyue smiled and said, I knew it. The Hao Chen I know is the most generous handsome guy. He would never get angry with me. Song Wai came to my house for the first time, curiously looking around. Hao Chen, your house is really beautiful. I politely replied. It's all my mom's doing. She is an interior designer. She's quite famous in the industry. My talent for painting probably comes from my mom. I walked out holding a fruit platter. I placed it on the coffee table in front of the sofa. I used a small fork to pick up a piece and handed it to Song Wai. Then I picked a piece for myself and put it in my mouth. Shen Xinyue calmly kept looking at me. I don't understand what she means. It made even the fruit in my mouth taste bland. I asked her in confusion. Are you crazy? Shen Xinyue rolled her eyes at me. Where's my fruit? This is how you treat your sister. I responded speechlessly. Taking advantage. Can't you get it yourself? Are you waiting for me to feed you like before? You know where our family bankbook is. Why are you pretending to be a guest? I said those words completely without intention. I was just chatting with her innocently. But Song Wai's expression quickly changed. There seems to be some anger and resentment. It's mostly jealousy. Hao Chen, is your family very wealthy? You even tell others where the bankbook is. Aren't you afraid something might happen? I shrugged, not caring. I'm just using an example. My dad is a chief physician. My mom is a designer. The income is decent. I'm just speaking the truth. There is absolutely no exaggeration or embellishment. Song Wai's expression became even worse. She held Shen Xinyue's hand. Still that gentle appearance. Actually, not having money can be great too. I heard that those families with better conditions are still unhappy. It's not siblings fighting over inheritance. It's just that the couple's feelings are not harmonious. They'll divorce sooner or later. I immediately frowned. Isn't this blatantly cursing my family? Shen Xinyue also felt that what he said was inappropriate. She squeezed his hand. Song Wai, don't speak recklessly. Uncle and aunt have a great relationship. Song Wai pulled Shen Xinyue into his arms. She turned her head and looked at me provocatively. That's not what I meant at all. I was thinking of getting a broom to sweep them out. What are you pretending to be a big shot at my house? Song Wai's words carry deep meaning. Even someone my age can understand it. Shen Xinyue couldn't possibly not hear it. She is pretending to be confused while knowing the truth. It's just to defend Song Wai. Song Wai continued speaking. Hao Chen, don't misunderstand. It's just that Yue is thinking of you. I came with her to visit. I really have no other intention. I shook my head and said, you're overthinking it. Thank you for coming to see me. Go back, I'm tired. Take a break. I coldly issued an eviction order. Shen Xinyue's expression turned cold. She stared at me intently. She seemed very angry that I was sending her away. Zhang Haochen, we came to see you out of kindness. What are you doing? If you really look down on Song Wai, at worst, we will just keep our distance from you in the future. The first part she said to Song Ya. The latter part is directed at. I replied coldly. Are you deaf? I can't hear him talk about my parents. I don't care what you say about me. But you can't talk about my parents. I don't want to argue. Hurry up and get lost. What's the matter? It has come. Shen Xinyue paused. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. At this moment, Song Wai jumped out again and said, Yue, I really didn't mean what he said. He misunderstood me. You have to believe me. What I bought is disgusting. I really didn't expect there would be boys this cheap. Shen Xinyue glared at me. Song Wai said that to uncle and aunt. He indeed didn't think it through. But he has always been unresponsive. So you weren't wrong? You knew his family had such a big issue. And you said in front of him how good your life is. Aren't you just provoking her? Hao Chen is far away with Chen. How did you become like this? I was so angry that I laughed at her. This evaluation is just short of saying I'm evil. Is this still the Shen Xinyue I have known for 19 years? I held back my words with great difficulty. Shen Xinyue, I'm too lazy to waste words with you. Please three of you get out of my house. Thank you. Upon hearing this, Shen Xinyue pulled Song Wai's hand and huffed off. Before leaving, Song Wai glanced back at me. The pride in his eyes is so obvious. I find it amusing to watch. Being favored so she can be reckless. I haven't seen Shen Xinyue for several days in a row. I enjoy my summer vacation with peace of mind. The years are peaceful and leisurely. Under my parents' anxious reminders, I set off on my journey once again. I don't know why. Shen Xinyue insisted on leaving on the same day as me. I don't care about it. If we're going together, then let's go together. It's just from home to the airport. It's just that short distance. When arriving at the airport and getting off, Sister Qingli's video call came in. I didn't think too much. As soon as I answered, step aside to answer. Speaking of Sister Qingli, this is public. When someone is capable and beautiful, they can support themselves. It's just a habit. I don't understand why she rarely calls me when she needs something. She means I should answer video calls. I would ask her why. She said video calls have loud sound. It's hard to miss. After saying hello, Shen Qingli looked at me and smiled. The Research Institute is going to hold a competition jointly with several prestigious schools. The judges are all well-known masters of traditional Chinese painting. Little Chen, do you want to participate? If you want to participate, can you team up with me? Other than painting, my communication with Sister Qingli isn't much. But her achievements in traditional Chinese painting are very significant. Her delicate and beautiful painting style perfectly complements mine. I have learned a lot from her. She is both a teacher and a friend to me. Therefore, being able to team up with her for the competition, I really couldn't ask for more. Before hanging up, Sister Qingli said she had already returned to school. She will come to pick me up at the airport. I felt a bit happy. After ending the call, I saw a bunch of suitcases that Shen Xinyue was guarding, standing by the roadside not far away, waiting for me. And Song Wei wrapped his arm around her shoulders. A gentle smile hung on his face. I couldn't be bothered to pay attention to them. I picked up my luggage and boarded the plane. The plane landed in the evening. I turned on my phone. Several messages dinged in. All from Shen Xinyue. Did you arrive? Brother Hao Chen. You have quite a lot of luggage. Is someone picking you up? Brother Chen. Stay away from the girl who is leaving. You are such a straightforward person. I'm afraid you might get hurt. I took a glance and just deleted the messages one by one. I replied with 4 words. I've arrived, don't worry. The other side almost replied instantly. Then sent several long voice messages in quick succession. I didn't even listen and just deleted it. I put my phone back in my backpack. Sister Qingli was waiting for me in front of a blue sedan. She emerged gracefully. Her eyes lit up. She jogged over and rubbed her hands together above her head. Long time no see. I've grown taller. You're much taller than me now. I scratched my head. I lowered my head and looked at her. Sister Qingli, you've also become prettier. Shen Qingli smiled happily. What happened? Haven't you been eating well? I couldn't find the right words to respond to her for a moment. After all, I stayed in the dormitory during the summer vacation. Plus, my mood was low and my stomach wasn't well. I have indeed lost quite a bit of weight. I smiled and touched my cheek. Sister Qingli, we haven't seen each other for 2 years. Do you still remember how I looked before? I've been jogging to lose weight recently. Sister Qingli gave me a sideways glance. You've lost so much weight that your eyes lost their brightness. I don't care if you're losing weight or whatever. Starting today, I'm going to help you get back to your original self. Returning to the school dormitory. The dormitory, which had no visitors during the holiday, was covered in dust. My roommates won't arrive until tomorrow. I rolled up my sleeves and started cleaning. After settling everything, it was almost 7 p.m. I was so tired that my back and legs ached. I was just about to lie down on the bed for a bit of rest. After Sister Qingli sent me 2 documents first. She called me on video again. She said the documents were prepared for a competition. She wanted me to see if I had any innovative ideas. I was really a bit tired. My voice was weak as I spoke. Can we look at it later? I just finished cleaning the dorm. Let me rest a bit. She raised her eyebrows and said, eat first, then come back to rest. The feeding plan starts with this meal. I'll go downstairs to pick you up. To be honest, I was too tired. I really didn't want to move, but my stomach was really hungry. After thinking about it, I agreed. Shen Qingli added, oh right. Do you mind if my classmate comes along? I shook my head and said, I don't mind. It's better to have a few more people. At 7:30, I arrived at the agreed location. As soon as I entered the store, in the deep part of the hall by the window, Shen Qingli stood up. She said something to the person at her desk. She stepped up to stand in front of me. She smiled and said to me, I was just about to settle down to welcome you. Seeing Sister Qingli's stunning smile, I was instantly dumbfounded. Shen Qingli smiled with her lips curled. Is it beautiful? Nodded in acknowledgement. Beautiful. Sister Qingli is the prettiest. I only learned today that I am a total visual person. Shen Qingli laughed out loud at my silly appearance. Then she took me over there. She introduced me to a few of her friends. The girls beside were starry-eyed. Are there really such handsome junior students at Linda? How did I not know? Sister Qingli is really stingy. Why didn't you introduce us earlier? Sister Qingli, I don't want to be your sister anymore. Shen Qingli was peeling shrimp while saying, don't talk nonsense. You're going to scare him off. You all need to be responsible for bringing him back. At the time of saying this, Sister Qingli peeled a shrimp and placed it on my small plate. I was instantly stunned. Sister Qingli. Shen Qingli's clear eyes looked at me. She blinked cutely with a bit of daze. The words on the tip of my tongue were swallowed with the peeled shrimp. Seeing me eat one by one, Shen Qingli also showed a happy smile. She has always been so gentle in protecting me. She has been like this since I was a child. She knows what I like and dislike. When she served dishes for me, they were all things I liked to eat. And her friends as well. Jokes aside, it's still very comfortable to be together. The dinner table was filled with laughter the whole time. The relaxed atmosphere dispelled my tension very well. As long as I'm with Sister Qingli, I always feel relaxed and at ease. I had a great time eating this meal. It was raining outside when I went back. The weather in the north has turned cool in September. I need to wear long sleeves in the morning and evening. I came out after just finishing some physical work. I was sweaty and just put on my clothes. After dinner, it was already 9:30 at night and raining. The temperature outside has dropped significantly. Just stepping out of the restaurant, the autumn chill greeted me immediately. I instinctively hugged my arms and shivered a bit. Soon, a warm jacket was draped over my shoulders. A faint scent of perfume lingered at my nose. When I realized it, I wanted to return the jacket. Sister Qingli had already seen through my thoughts. She gently pressed down on my shoulder. Put it on. It's not the first time. Catching a cold will delay your participation in the competition. It's a big hat. I helplessly succumbed to her threat. In the following time, aside from attending classes, I was immersed in creation. Shen Qingli, under the pretext of convenient communication, reserved a dedicated spot for me in the art studio of the Research Institute. I could go there anytime. Because of Sister Qingli's presence, I became the first freshman at Linda who could come and go freely in the Research Institute. At the same time, I made a number of boys who admired Sister Qingli envious. Moreover, Sister Qingli truly considered feeding me as one of the daily must-dos. When the time came, regardless of where I was or what I was doing, she would rush over and take me out for a meal. Many times, Sister Qingli's friends would join us as well. Over time, I became familiar with them. Because of Sister Qingli, they all called me little brother. With Sister Qingli around, I felt like a child, happily enjoying her attentive care. It seems she can't stand seeing me live comfortably. That day, I received a video call from Shen Xinyue. At that time, I had just finished taking a shower. I was sitting at my desk drying my hair. Her call came in. Seeing that flashing profile picture. Intersection. This is since I started university. This was the first video call she made to me. I didn't know what she wanted to talk to me about. Even if there was, I wouldn't answer. She called me again and again. Reluctantly, I swiped to answer the call. Her face appeared clearly in front of me. She was smiling happily. Her eyes were full of joy. Brother Haochen, what are you doing? I replied flatly. Is there something you need? The corners of her lips curled up high. Is it not allowed for me to call you? I chuckled softly. I didn't pick up on her flirtation. Such teasing words are not suitable for me and her. At the time when I was most infatuated with her, I had never joked with her this intimately. It's even more impossible now. Shen Xinyue spoke again. I have something to ask of you. Member. I had an ominous premonition in my heart. To be honest, I don't want to agree. Shen Xinyue continued. Song Y's department is organizing an exchange with Linda University. The day after tomorrow, he'll be going to your side. I'm worried he can't handle it on his own. If it weren't for Sister Qingli. So, Song Y is coming to my place. I still have to take care of him. I think he has a lot on his mind. To be honest, I don't want to agree. Song Y looked like a frail scholar. Does he have hands or no legs? Besides, I'm busy with the competition. Exhausted every day. I was a bit speechless. I might not even be able to eat well. Seeing that I kept hesitating, Shen Xinyue asked again. Is that okay? Brother Haochen. I'm begging you. She had an expectant smile on her face. Song Y also appeared and waved at me. Hello. Haochen, don't worry. I will never cause you trouble. I looked at the smiling face in the lens. I couldn't help but furrow my brow and say, how long have we been communicating? When Shen Xinyue heard me ask this, her eyes suddenly lit up. At most a month. I continued to say, let me say this first. Recently, I have a lot on my plate. I can only do my best. You tell him. If you need something, find me. Don't bother me if there's nothing. When Shen Xinyue saw that I finally agreed, she smiled so wide that her eyes squinted. Brother Chen. Thank you. The next morning, I had breakfast with Shen Qingli. I ordered my favorite dish. But just thinking about Song Y's arrival made me anxious. I felt extremely annoyed inside. Even my stomach felt off. I could only eat 2 and couldn't eat anymore. Sister Qingli, sitting across from me, asked with concern. Why are you eating so little? I rested my chin on my hand and replied. Song Y is coming. I really dislike him. A hint of confusion appeared in Shen Qingli's beautiful eyes. Who is Song Y? Let him be. What does it have to do with you? I feel a little shocked. Doesn't Shen Qingli know about Shen Xinyue and Song Y? Does that mean she also doesn't know about the issues between me and Shen Xinyue? No wonder since we met. Sister Qingli hasn't mentioned it once. After thinking about it, I replied. He is your sister's boyfriend. In the future, they will be family with you. Don't you know that already? Sister Qingli picked up a napkin, dabbed her lips, then put it down. Her eyes sparkled with an unknown light. Don't make jokes like that. You and Shen Xinyue had an arranged marriage since childhood. She will never have another boyfriend in her life. I looked at Sister Qingli's innocent face. Suddenly, I didn't know where to start. It seems she really doesn't know about this. Moreover, Shen Xinyue and I will be together for life. It has already been deeply ingrained in everyone who knows us. Just like during senior year, I stood on the classroom podium to clarify that Shen Xinyue and I are just neighbors. At that time, none of the classmates believed it. I looked at Sister Qingli and said, Sister Qingli, I'm not lying. Shen Xinyue and I never even started anything. Song Y is a classmate of ours from the same year. He got together with Shen Xinyue in senior year. They are all studying at Jingda now. Shen Xinyue likes him quite a bit. Sister Qingli put down her chopsticks. She looked at me in disbelief. It seemed like she was verifying the truth of what I said, as if what I said was all a tall tale. But I don't want to talk about something so painful. Sister Qingli, can we not talk about this anymore? Sister Qingli just smiled gently. Okay. As long as you're happy, that's enough. Let's go. Class is about to start. Just Xiaochen. You have to remember. No matter what happens, I will always be with you. I'm really touched. She could keenly sense my emotional fluctuations. Sister Qingli, why are you so nice to me? Upon hearing this, Sister Qingli paused. An unknown emotion surged in her eyes. It was quickly suppressed again. Then she smiled beautifully. Our Hao Chen is so smart and handsome. Of course, he deserves to be treated well. After dinner, Shen Qingli accompanied me to the classroom door. She watched me find my seat correctly. Only then did she turn and leave. Seeing me personally escorted to the classroom by the goddess of the research institute, several familiar boys came over. They all inquired about my relationship with the goddess. When they learned I was the goddess's younger brother, they all looked at me as if they had seen a close younger brother. They even asked if they were the type the goddess liked, whether they had a chance to win the goddess's heart. I took a careful look at them as a responsible younger brother. I examined these boys closely. This eye size. Can't tell if it's open or closed. That middle part hairstyle is so out of style. The other one is wearing suspenders and never puts down the basketball. At first glance, it's clear they've lost their mind. After looking around, I publicly announced that none of them were qualified. The boys clutched their broken hearts. They returned to their seats dejectedly. One even lay on the desk for the entire class. Soon it was time to dismiss school. Although I was extremely reluctant, I still went to pick them up on time. Song Wai smiled at me. Hao Chen, you really came to pick me up. Your requirements for Shen Xinyue. You really respond to every request. That's great. I have a bit too much luggage. Can you help me carry some? Song Wai was as annoying as ever. If it weren't for my strong sense of commitment, I really wanted to leave him there. I gave him a glance. Haven't you eaten? Can't you carry this little luggage by yourself? After saying that, I turned and left. Song Wai looked at me with a blank expression as he got into the car. He bit his teeth in anger. In the end, he lifted his luggage into the trunk himself. I was puzzled. It was just a 1-month exchange between schools. Is it necessary to bring 3 large suitcases? After getting in the car, Song Wai kept mumbling about nothing. Hao Chen, you've been studying here for over a year. Don't you have your own car? Do you still have to take a taxi? I looked at him, somewhat speechless. If you're not going to do it, then just roll down. Someone asked you to get in again. Upon hearing that, Song Wai looked aggrieved. Hao Chen, you clearly promised Shen Xinyue that you would take good care of me. Do you believe I'll call her and tell her? I raised the phone in my hand. I almost jabbed it in his face. Is Shen Xinyue your mother? You have to tell her everything? Tell her right now. If your phone is dead, I can lend you mine. Song Wai lost face. His face was a mix of dark and pale in anger. I wish I could just die at a glance. I happily hummed a tune all the way. I ignored him. I just like seeing him disapproving of me, and yet unable to get rid of me. Arriving at the school gate, the 2 cars following behind also stopped. They are all exchange students who came with Song Wai. They sent Song Wai to the dormitory. I was just about to leave. He called me back again. Zhang Hao Chen, I'm hungry. Why don't you treat us to hot pot? My classmates and I. There are a total of 7 people. We are all unfamiliar with this place. Why don't you take us around? I was simply at a loss for words. This person is shameless. I shot him a cold glance. I can't afford it, I'm leaving. After saying that, I turned and walked away. Seeing this, Song Wai's classmate asked, Song Ya, didn't you say that here we would have everything taken care of? Why don't you even want to treat us to hot pot? Your girlfriend isn't setting you up with a poor guy, is she? Isn't she good to you either? Or are you just bragging? They don't take you seriously at all. Song Wai is vain and cares about appearances. His face alternated between shades of green and red, changed to a gentle demeanor in front of Shen Xinyue, furious to the point that flames seemed to shoot from his eyes. Zhang Hao Chen, if you don't invite us, I'll just tell Shen Xinyue. Upon hearing this, I laughed. What grade are you in? Still so fond of complaining. How many little red flowers did Shen Xinyue give you? Tell whoever you want. Several onlookers were amused by my words. They laughed so hard that they disrespected Song Wai. Turns out it's a group of fake brotherhood. Song Wai couldn't hold back his anger. He really took out his phone to call. Shen Xinyue quickly picked up. Song Wai had it on speakerphone. We could all hear it. Song Wai's voice was as gentle as ever. Xinyue, I'm at school now. Shen Xinyue's voice came through. Did you catch a cold? Why does the sound seem a bit off? Song Wai shook his head and said, it's nothing. It's just that my classmate wants to eat hot pot. But Hao Chen. He trailed off on the second half of the sentence. Song Wai looked at me awkwardly. I stepped forward and directly snatched the phone. Your boyfriend wants me to treat the whole class to hot pot. I don't have any money. I can't afford it. That's how it is. You all keep chatting. Song Wai opened his mouth wide, looking embarrassed. He probably didn't expect me to be so direct. Shen Xinyue remained silent and didn't speak. The onlookers were all waiting for a good show. Yet Song Wai couldn't maintain his composure. He gently called out, Xinyue. In the end, Shen Xinyue transferred 500 yuan to me, paying the bill. You take them out to eat. Song Yazi. Comprehensive. I originally didn't want to reply to her, but not replying made me feel uncomfortable all over. So I typed a few words and sent it. There's no time. Then returned the money. Let her transfer it to Song Wai herself. At the same time, I sent her the location of the hot pot restaurant. In the end, I clapped my hands and left gracefully. That day, Shen Xinyue called me several times. I completely ignored them as if I hadn't heard. When I was about to fall asleep at night, Shen Xinyue sent me a message. Song Wai has a somewhat shy personality. You should be a bit more accommodating to him. Shen Xinyue sent me this message late at night. It definitely wasn't to explain anything to me, but rather to remind me not to upset Song Wai again. I didn't reply to her message. I treated her as if she were just a passing cloud. I continued to live my life as a well-behaved person. Song Wai must have some kind of problem with his brain. Or perhaps I hurt him somehow. He surprisingly didn't bother me for several days in a row. This surprised me and caught me off guard. The sample for the competition is finally complete. It's even better than I expected. I am very satisfied with it. I was just about to take it to show Shen Qingli. Her call came in first. Sister Qingli, I was just about to call you. Here you go, all set. Do you want to take a look first? Upon hearing this, Shen Qingli smiled and said, Xiao Chen and I are truly in sync. I smacked my lips. Why do I feel like Sister Qingli is being a bit flirty? Then Shen Qingli continued. Do you want to take on a job? A fantastic opportunity. A classmate's grandfather is celebrating his golden anniversary at the end of the year. She wants to make a collection of paintings to illustrate the experiences of the elderly man over the years, to depict all the storms and hardships of the past decade, to present it to the elderly couple on that day, because the specifications are quite high, and the time is tight. So, a high price was offered. I immediately asked, how high? Shen Qingli smiled and said, 1,577. I was a bit surprised. That classmate is really generous. I'm just an unknown college student. Can I meet the required specifications? Heart. Shen Qingli quickly cheered me on. You have to believe in yourself. You will definitely complete it excellently. She really has confidence in me. I am somewhat puzzled. Such generous conditions. Why doesn't Sister Qingli take it herself? Shen Qingli continued speaking. If you don't speak, then I'll agree for you. Focus on preparing for the competition first. After that, you can do this exclusively. The deadline for submitting the artwork is after New Year's Day. Why are you so anxious? Before hanging up, she called out to me again. Aren't you supposed to show me the draft? So on that brisk autumn night, I brought my draft to the research institute to find Sister Qingli. Shen Qingli was waiting for me in the studio on the first floor. I was wearing a pair of sneakers when I came over. No matter how far I walk, I won't get tired. More importantly, these shoes make no noise when walking. The rose wall on the side of the research institute is as beautiful as ever. I'm wandering here at will. The mood is particularly relaxed. Halfway through, I vaguely heard a faint discordant sound from the side. The voice was surprisingly familiar. I'm not a gossipy person, but that familiar voice, I can't figure it out either. Following the sound, I quietly went closer. In the central part on the right side of the wall, there's a small sunken flower corridor. At the end is an abandoned little room. I was instantly drenched in cold sweat. Those two were hiding at the end of the corridor. They were tightly embracing and kissing passionately. Under the mottled light, I finally saw that person clearly. It's said to be the storage room of the Agricultural Economics Department. It really is Song Wai. I covered my mouth tightly, afraid that I might make a sound by accident. Then I quickly ran through the entrance of the research institute. I couldn't help my curiosity at all. What is the relationship between Song Wai and that girl? When did they get together? If it's said to be newly acquainted, that Song Wai really is quite open-hearted. He doesn't refuse anyone. But seeing them hug each other looks so natural. It's clearly the kind of longing felt after a long separation. The two of them seem to have known each other for a long time. It seems that Song Wai's purpose in coming to Lin Da for exchange might be more complicated. Does Shen Xinyue know? My mood is quite heavy. I can't help but think about how much Shen Xinyue liked him. I recall how Shen Xinyue fought to be with him. The struggles she had with Uncle Shen and Auntie. Remembering Shen Xinyue's vow that she wouldn't marry anyone else. If it weren't me witnessing this scene today, but rather Shen Xinyue, who trusts her so much, Shen Xinyue would go crazy, right? Song Wai is too greedy. Having Shen Xinyue yet wanting to play both sides. Human hearts are truly hard to gauge. What are you doing? Sneaking around. Shen Qingli's voice suddenly appeared from behind. Startled, I stepped forward and covered her mouth. I pushed her back into the building forcefully. Shen Qingli didn't know what was happening. Her eyes continuously scanned the surroundings. Until we entered the painting studio. I finally let go of one hand covering her mouth. Shen Qingli's delicate face turned red. Those clear, cold eyes seemed to have a flame flickering within. It was then that I realized how ambiguous my actions with her had just been. I quickly turned my head and walked into the painting studio. I carefully placed my drawing on the table. I explained the design concept of this painting to the senior students in the art department, as well as the best effect I wanted to achieve. Shen Qingli listened very attentively. Her glass-like beautiful eyes lit up. Little brother Chen, you are truly a genius. How did you come up with such a wonderful idea? I grinned and scratched my head. Shen Qingli raised her eyes to look at me. Her eyes were filled with appreciation. This little handsome guy has always been this outstanding since childhood. After discussing, it was almost 11 o'clock and I had finished my speech draft. Shen Qingli said she wanted to see me off. We took the path along the rose wall again. When passing by the small flower arch, I pretended to casually look around, looking for that pair of wild lovebirds. The place was already deserted. Xiao Chen, why do you act like a thief tonight? Are you hiding something from me? I shook my head and said, Sister Qingli, have you seen Song Wai these days? Shen Qingli waved her hand and said, what do I need to see him for? I don't have the time to entertain him. I said, after all, he's also your future brother-in-law, right? Should I bring him over to introduce him to you? Sister Qingli smiled and shook her head. I'll just take care of my future husband. I'm not interested in other people's husbands. I looked puzzled. Sister Qingli, where's your future husband? Do you know him? Shen Qingli smiled and snorted. We're very familiar with each other. I instantly perked up at those words. Sister Qingli, who is the person you like? It wouldn't be one of my classmates, would it? But Shen Qingli kept smiling and didn't speak. I used all my means along the way, forcing Sister Qingli to reveal the name of the person she likes. Shen Qingli, with her spirit of stubbornness. She only had one thing to say. You'll find out later. Alright. It's fine to find out later too. At least I can monopolize Sister Qingli for a while. After returning, I lay in bed tossing and turning, unable to sleep. The scene I just secretly saw made me uncomfortable. I couldn't decide whether to pretend I didn't see it. Let Shen Xinyue continue to chase her dream of love. Still, I should tell her. Let her quickly clear the green pastures above her head. Thought for a long time nonetheless. Instead, it made me think too much. Suddenly woke up. I still couldn't make up my mind. This matter left me distracted for 2 days in a row. I didn't even notice Shen Qingli standing in front of me for a long time. Classmate Hao Chen, what are you thinking? So lost in thought. I looked up in surprise. Shen Qingli was raising her eyebrows, looking at me, with a smile at the corner of her mouth. At that moment, a flash of inspiration suddenly struck me. Seeing my eyes shine brightly, Shen Qingli, with a strong sense of self-protection, took a half step back. With her arms crossed, she assumed a defensive posture. What do you want to do? I slyly leaned closer to her and whispered. Sister Qingli, do you know any private investigators? Can you introduce one to me? Shen Qingli tugged at my clothes. She pinned me in front of her. She stared into my eyes for a while, studying me. After making sure I wasn't joking, she spoke. Who do you want to investigate? I thought for a moment and said. Last week, a few exchange students from Jingda came to our school. One of the boys looked familiar to me. I want to find out who he is. Shen Qingli squinted and asked me. Is it really that simple? I was at a loss for words. I could only retort her. What else? She had an attitude of not caring if I didn't say anything. If not, I won't help you. Honestly, what do you really want to do? I don't want to be involved in messy matters. After thinking back and forth, I had to yield. I told her the truth of the matter. I want to investigate Song Wai. I suspect he has some issues. Shen Qingli stared at me for a while and then said, Little Chen, you're so concerned about Shen Xinyue. I replied in return. Shouldn't I care? Sister Qingli, this concerns your sister's important life matters. Shen Qingli looked at me seriously and said, What really happened? Her aura was surprisingly strong. I had to talk about what happened that night. Said it to her again. After Shen Qingli listened, her previously gentle smile turned cold as ice. So you're doing this to catch Song Wai's mistakes. Should he break up with Shen Xinyue? I shook my head and denied it. I quickly shook my head to deny it. Where were you thinking? She wants to break up now. I won't have anything to do with her anymore. I'm wronged. Shen Qingli seriously observed me for a while, to confirm that what I said was true. Her expression softened somewhat. Why do you care so much? Don't you think the hurt isn't deep enough? I shook my head and said. Filled circle Sister Qingli. After all, I grew up with her. We can't become a couple. I don't want her to be deceived either. You are her real sister. Would you really allow your own sister to have such a fresh color on her head? Upon hearing this, Sister Qingli looked at me seriously and said, I can help you. But you must promise me. You can never be so concerned about Shen Xinyue again. I nodded and extended one finger. The last time. Only then did Sister Qingli soften her tone and say, Little Chen is really obedient. After saying this, she took me to eat spicy hot pot before going back. I began to wait anxiously. I hoped to receive definite news within a week. Unexpectedly, Sister Qingli acted swiftly and decisively. By the next evening, she had already given me the result. She said that she found out. Soon, Shen Qingli and I were sitting in a corner of a rice noodle shop. It was like a spy meeting on the street. She placed the file in her hand in front of me and whispered, Take a look. It's like a melodramatic play. I couldn't help but ask, Have you seen it? Shen Qingli nodded, her stunning face exuding confidence. Not a trace of anger at her own sister being betrayed. I took it and opened it, reading it page by page. Turns out the female classmate is named Lin Mushui. She and Song Wai have been classmates since childhood. Both are prominent figures in Beicheng. The two families are quite compatible. The two grew up together and are in love. They had long agreed to apply to the same university, and then get married after graduation. Unfortunately, Song Wai's father got into trouble and was arrested. The Song family was excluded from Beicheng's upper class. Thus, the Lin family immediately turned against them. They strictly ordered Lin Mushui to cut off contact with Song Wai. Lin Mushui secretly liked Song Wai. She would rather go against her family than give him up. The parents of the Su family were helpless. They had to resort to some measures, forcing Song Wai and his mother to have no foothold in Beicheng. A pair of lovers were forcefully separated like this. Since then, the two have cut off all contact. I thought life would be like that. Unexpectedly, an exchange event at Jingda. Surprisingly, this destined couple met joyfully in the vast sea of people. Then they embraced after just a few sentences. A thin 2-page document, only about the matters between Lin Mushui and Song Wai. To be honest, I felt a bit schadenfreude. But every word was telling a story about the fact that Shen Xinyue was cheated on. The document was quickly read through. It made me sigh deeply. Not a single word mentioned Shen Xinyue. After the joy, I still felt at a loss about how to handle this matter. Unable to make up my mind at all. Sister Qingli, do you think we should tell Shen Xinyue? Shen Qingli frowned and looked at me. Why are you so conflicted? If you have the time, why not focus on her painting? I propped my chin on my hand and said, After all, she is your biological sister. If you don't know, then forget it. Knowing and still standing by, watching idly. Isn't that a bit unfair? Shen Qingli let out a hum. After thinking for a moment, she replied, She is blind to treasure trash as gems. Shen Qingli saw that I wanted to say something and immediately interrupted me. There's nothing to hesitate about. The matter with Song Wai will eventually reveal itself. Let Shen Xinyue discover it herself. She is currently infatuated with that man. She doesn't even listen to my parents. How could she believe you and me? We are doing this for her good. Yet we have to be questioned by her. Instead, it affects our relationship with each other. What you said is indeed correct. But somehow, it feels off to me. Given the estranged relationship between Shen Xinyue and me over the years, she can't possibly believe me. Instead, she would think I'm sowing discord between her and Song Wai. I temporarily give up the childish idea of snitching. However, considering we grew up together, I still want to give her a little reminder. I lay in bed at night, thinking for a long time. I crafted a message to send. To have Shen Xinyue video chat with Song Wai a few more times. Shen Xinyue was surprised by my sudden initiative to reach out. Messages came one after another. They were just some trivial greetings and the like. I replied a couple of times and then stopped. I turned off my phone and went to sleep. The next day, my mom called me. I remembered the matter about Song Wai. So I told my mom about it. My mom was silent for a while after hearing it. She also told me to take care of myself. Don't get involved in other matters. My mom said. Shen Xinyue would never believe me. Instead, I would be labeled as having ulterior motives. Often, good intentions can lead to bad outcomes. Sister Qingli shares the same thoughts as my mom. I also let go of my mental burdens. I completely immersed myself in the creative process of the competition. After Shen Qingli studied my ideas, she decided to follow my vision. After almost a week of polishing, we finalized the creative direction. We are ready to start painting tomorrow. I have been learning to paint for quite some time. How many times, big or small? All desires, big or small. But this high-standard competition has this kind of team participation format for the first time. I rubbed my hands together excitedly. I was determined to achieve a good rank. I rummaged through to take out all the paints, only to realize I was missing a few kinds and needed to buy them immediately. There is a stationery store at the school, but at this time, they had already closed. There is also a stationery supermarket on the street behind the school. They have a complete range of items inside. After having dinner and without anything to do, my roommate Lin Tian and I went to the back street together. We didn't walk far, and saw Song Wai standing with a girl, at the entrance of a small inn, hugging regardless of others' looks, attracting many curious gazes along the way. I couldn't help but sigh. It's just a few steps. Can't you just kiss once you're inside? Must perform publicly at the door. At this moment, Lin Tian stroked his chin like he was watching a show. Isn't that Lin Shui from the finance department? I've heard her family is quite wealthy. Many boys like her. These two are quite bold. I saw them chatting in the bathroom just the day before yesterday. And today they were caught going to a hotel. After all, they're young. They have good physical fitness. Lin Tian is a true northerner. He is straightforward and outspoken. He especially dislikes these bad influences. Lin Tian and I entered the stationery supermarket together. After coming out, I felt very confused. I took a big pile of items to pay, but I completely forgot the paint. It was Lin Tian who reminded me. I quickly realized and rushed back to choose again. After buying everything, I returned to the dormitory. I hurriedly sent Shen Qingli a message. Sister Qingli, I just saw those two go to a hotel. Should we go catch them? Shen Qingli replied almost instantly. The traditional Chinese painting major isn't suitable for you. Why not switch to the police academy? With Shen Qingli's reminder, I suddenly realized. Song Wai isn't afraid of being caught playing both sides. I'll hide like a bystander for 20. The next day, I went to the school cafeteria with Lin Tian. As soon as we entered the cafeteria, we saw Song Wai and Lin Mushui right in front of us. The two were sitting together eating. Ever since Sister Qingli returned, I've been dragged to eat with her every day. I've hardly come to the cafeteria. But today, Sister Qingli had something to do outside the school. She'll return in the evening. So I came to the cafeteria with my roommate. Song Wai has particularly sharp eyes. Saw me coming. Quickly distanced herself from Lin Mushui. Pretended like nothing happened and waved at me. I couldn't be bothered to pay attention to him. Treated him like air. However, Song Wai came over recklessly and said, How Chen? Shen Xinyue specifically asked you to take care of me. Is this how you take care of me? It's one thing to not see you for a few days. Not even a phone call. Poor Shen Xinyue still considers you a friend. Turns out you're two-faced, putting on a facade in person. I shot him a glance. You say you're two-faced? There are still people like that. Maintaining a facade of deep affection and loyalty. Genuine gold. I shrugged. Half a sentence left unsaid. Upon hearing this, Song Wai dropped his chopsticks. And loudly questioned me. What do you mean? Speak clearly. It was lunchtime. Many people were dining in the cafeteria. Upon hearing the noise, many looked over here. I said coldly. Can't you understand the literal meaning? I intended to finish my retort and leave immediately. Just as I took a step forward, I stepped back again. I stood in front of Song Wai and added another cut. Have you heard that saying? If you want others not to know, you must not do it yourself. Don't be too arrogant. Song Wai might be feeling guilty. His face suddenly turned pale. He stared at me with a fearful and uncertain gaze. I didn't do anything. Don't slander me. I let out a cold laugh. I didn't say anything. Why are you reacting so intensely? Let me give you one last piece of advice. Stay away from me. Don't provoke me. After saying that, I turned and left. A few days later, Shen Xinyue called to tell me. Due to some special reasons, Song Wai's exchange program ended a week early. During the call, I could tell she was very happy. Actually, I was happy too. Out of sight, out of mind. I unconsciously compared Shen Xinyue to Sister Qingli. When I had my accident, Shen Xinyue wasn't unaware. She just threw the problem at me. And whether intentionally or not, Shen Qingli has always stood by my side to help me solve problems. Shen Qingli could be said to be, apart from my parents, the most important person. I completely, by my own efforts, occupied Shen Qingli's leisure time. Sometimes Shen Qingli is too busy, not seeing each other for 2 or 3 days. I feel anxious in my heart, as if something is missing. Shen Qingli seems to know my feelings. No matter how busy she is, she always makes time to call me. Sent Song Y to the plane. I sent Shen Xinyue a photo, to tell her that Song Y returned safely. Shen Xinyue politely sent me a thank you. I could feel her joy in her voice. Tisk tisk. I hope she can still smile after knowing the truth. In the blink of an eye, the 11-day holiday has arrived. Most students are returning home with their luggage like swallows returning to their nests. Some are going on trips in groups of 3 to 5. I originally told my parents that I wouldn't go back. I planned to go to Shongshan to see the red leaves with my roommates. My travel bag was already packed. But Shen Qingli suddenly informed me that the competition was moved up. We have to finish all our work before the 4th. To verify the authenticity of the situation, she even invited Professor Shaw to vouch for her. Thus, I was dragged back to the Research Institute studio by Shen Qingli. I was miserably finishing up the last bits of work. A perfectly good trip was cancelled. I couldn't muster any spirit to do anything. In Shen Qingli's words, for several days, I pouted deeply with a face full of grievances. No smile at all. Most teachers and students have left the school. There were hardly any people to begin with. Meanwhile, Shen Qingli spent all day just watching me eat. It's just a reminder for me to focus and draw properly. I seem to be fine on the surface, but I'm actually sighing inside. The 11-day holiday is here. Just like that, it's gone. On the night of the 3rd, I kept busy until 9 o'clock in the evening. I was so tired that I couldn't go on. I could only do it tomorrow. Shen Qingqi disagrees with everything. She dragged me to finish the little bit that was left. I was busy for another 2 hours. I finally returned to the dormitory building, working day and night for 3 consecutive days. I fell asleep as soon as my head hit the pillow. I dreamt of my roommate Lin Tian sitting in a roast duck restaurant. He was smiling and showing off the photos taken at Shongshan. I was so angry that I really wanted to punch him through the dream. I was thinking that during the holiday, there would be nothing to do. I could have a good sleep. It's not bright. I didn't know it was dawn. The phone started ringing like crazy. I thought it was my mom. I groggily answered it. There is a moment of silence over there. Then comes a clear laugh. My familiar ears tremble. I suddenly wake up. I instinctively look at the screen. Shen Qingli smiles like a fairy. Seeing this, I mutter speechlessly. It's a long holiday. Why are you bothering me so early in the morning? Laughing even more joyfully. Stars are twinkling chaotically in her eyes. Don't sleep anymore. I'll take you out to play. To show you. I let out a sigh. I want to sleep now. Shen Qingli patiently talks to me. How beautiful the scenery there is. How many painters squeeze their brains to go there for inspiration. She said I would likely not want to leave if I went. Her sweet voice is quite captivating. Shen Qingli is not only a master of traditional Chinese painting. She is an expert. Home. In the end, I feel that if I don't go, it would be a major regret in life. Thus, I was successfully won over by Shen Qingli's sweet talk. As I stepped out of the dormitory carrying my backpack, Shen Qingli was quietly waiting for me under a cherry blossom tree. A gentle and lingering smile hung on her lips. Her gaze was filled with twinkling tenderness. Borrowed sunlight filtered through the flowers, illuminating her. It was as if a figure from a painting had stepped into reality. Her beauty made my heart race. Wait for me to come back. I had already gotten into the car. Shen Qingli placed a bag in my hand. It was too early. There was no time to take you for breakfast. I bought it on the way. Just make do with a bit. I opened it to take a look. It was my favorite shrimp dumplings and multigrain porridge from that shop. That shop is quite far from Linda University. It was just getting light outside. She must have woken up very early. I quietly glanced at Shen Qingli beside me. I thought her face was truly beautiful. I often found myself unable to look away. We chatted and laughed along the way. The atmosphere is relaxed and cheerful. I thought she would tell me where we were going. Then making a travel guide. During these 4 days, having a great time playing. It was just Shen Qingli being mysterious. Green mountains, clear waters, blue sky, and white clouds. They were unwilling to tell me. Just telling me would let me know. She said I would definitely like it there. Crossing a mountain and several bridges. Finally arriving at the destination. An ecological zone located in the hills of the Changbai mountain range. There are vast areas of primeval forest here. A rich variety of vegetation. No matter how much I said. Sister Qingli, just like when we were young. Holding my hand and strolling along the mountain paths. She tells me about folk painting masters I have never heard of. Discussing her different understanding of traditional Chinese painting. Talking about the little paths she led me along when we were children. We are like tourists in a painting. I looked at Shen Qingli and asked, Sister Qingli, this place is so beautiful. How did you find this? Shen Qingli smiled gently. There are even more beautiful places ahead. Do you want to go see? When the car stopped in front of a small village, I was once again speechless. Sister Qingli, where is this? It's even more beautiful than a painting. I stared blankly at everything in front of me. I felt a bit itchy in my hands. I smiled back. Shen Qingli smiled and said, let's eat first. In a while, we will face the sunset. She skillfully found a guest house. The owner came out warmly upon hearing the sound of the car. We had typical northern farmhouse dishes for dinner. The taste was surprisingly good. I was so full that I could hardly walk. Shen Qingli laughed at me while leading me around the village to help with digestion. That evening, when Shen Qingli opened the trunk, the completeness of the equipment astonished me. She actually brought a complete set of painting tools. Just facing the brilliant sunset like that, taking them out one by one and setting them up. Then she made me sit in front of the easel, placing a brush in the palm of my hand. I sat still and painted for a full 4 hours. The sunset went down and the moon rose up. All the lights at the corners of the homestay courtyard were lit to illuminate us. But I racked my brains. Yet I still couldn't depict the stunning beauty of this place one by one. Moreover, meticulous painting emphasizes details. 4 hours passed. I only managed to sketch a rough outline. It was of the small creek I personally explored in the afternoon. The distant mountains and maple leaves. Even the small grass by the creek were all drawn on the paper. But I still felt something was missing. I couldn't express the kind of charm I wanted in my heart no matter what. After thinking for a long time, I quickly picked up the brush to sketch. Soon, next to that round white stone, a girl in a white dress with long hair appeared. She stood barefoot in the stream, playfully teasing the small fish in the water. The splashes wet her long dress. An originally beautiful painting. It instantly became lively and vivid with the girl's presence. Shen Qingli beside her blinked her big eyes adorably. This is so beautiful. Little Chen. Are you painting me? I gazed at the painting, my eyes growing more affectionate. I couldn't help but express my feelings. Because of Qingli's appearance, the mountain and maple scenery paled in comparison. I used all my skills. The person I painted still couldn't compare to my Qingli in my heart by a tenth. Sister Qingli is the most beautiful scenery in the world. When I came to my senses, I realized I had actually said such cheesy things. I awkwardly turned my head, meeting Shen Qingli's gentle, watery gaze. Her cheeks flushed twice, staring at me motionlessly. Shen Qingli felt her heart thumping wildly. When did my little brother Chen become so romantic? Speaking like composing poetry. It's extremely pleasant to hear. For 2 consecutive days, Shen Qingli and I explored every corner here. To keep all these flourishing scenes in my mind, I took many more photos. I want to after returning, to capture these beautiful views that I can never get enough of. I will depict them one by one with my paintbrush. Let them become eternal. The way back seemed much shorter. Shen Qingli and I arrived at the office of the Research Institute. We let Professor Shaw look over our final drawings. Professor Shaw nodded. They are very satisfied with our final draft. So we finally submitted the final draft to the competition organizers. I feel the burden on my shoulders has lightened a lot. Starting to focus on creating an album for the golden wedding couple. I thought I had to use traditional Chinese painting techniques. After asking carefully, I learned that what they wanted was colored pencils. To be honest, I have been specializing in traditional Chinese painting since childhood. I have also dabbled in sketching, but I didn't practice it with much effort. I've never painted with colored pencils before. However, I have had a competitive spirit since childhood. Qingli Jia recommended a course to me. I learned and painted at the same time. Gradually, I actually found joy in it. I became more and more skilled at painting. Unconsciously, a semester passed quickly. Soon, it was the end of December. It got very cold outside. Classmates all switched to slightly thicker cotton clothing. They sent a WeChat asking me to come downstairs. They said they had something important to discuss with me. I put on a thick jacket. I stuffed my phone into my pocket and ran outside. In the morning, light snow was falling from the sky. Good morning. The pure white snowflakes hung on the branches. Shen Qingli stood by the tree and waved at me. There was uncontrollable excitement on her face. It was as if she had encountered some great fortune. I jogged over and asked, Sister Qingli, did the competition results come out? Shen Qingli nodded. Her eyes sparkled with starlight. Little Chen, can you guess what place we got? I cautiously voiced my guess. It can't be first place, right? Shen Qingli stepped forward and gently hugged me. Of course, it's first place. Our little Chen is the best. The #1 street in the world. That evening, Shen Qingli and I were in the campus that had just had its first snow, chatting happily and forgetting everything else, attracting many envious gazes. In the past, I wanted to share everything with Shen Xingyue, but that day I won first place in the competition. Yet I didn't think of her. To celebrate winning first place in the competition, Shen Qingli invited my whole dorm and her few close friends out for dinner. By the end, my roommate and I were both a bit drunk. There shoulder to shoulder in the quiet night, shouting and singing off-key songs. Shen Qingli didn't drink much alcohol. She remained sober and brought me to the dorm building. She only turned to leave after watching me go inside. As we went up to the dorm, Lin Tian, a bit tipsy, spoke up. This line seems incomplete and doesn't translate meaningfully. I can see that Senior Qingli's gaze towards you is not right. What exactly are you? Are you capable or not? Don't keep holding them up all the time. Let me tell you. She is the goddess in the hearts of all the boys at Linda University. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. I've explained this 100 times. That's my sister Qingli. She is the sister who has cared for me the most since childhood. In her heart, I am her little brother. Her position as my sister is deeply ingrained. I don't want to explain it anymore. People never get tired of listening. I've already said it too much. I can only pretend I didn't hear it. Lin Tian angrily nudged me with his elbow. Well, you just be slow to catch on. With your emotional intelligence. I'm getting worked up for my goddess. Just chatting and laughing. Just got to the 4th floor. Then I ran into another roommate. They both brought the topic back to me. They unanimously said that Shen Qingli likes me. I should cherish it a bit more. Quickly take the person away. I'm too exhausted to explain. I can only pretend to be asleep. I thought I would go home alone during the winter break. I didn't expect that when I stepped out of the dorm that morning. I saw Shen Qingli dragging her suitcase waiting for me under the tree. She said she hasn't been back for almost 2 years. Her family asked her to go back for the new year. I said with a beaming face, Sister Qingli, Why didn't you tell me in advance? Shen Qingli smiled lightly. Isn't this meant to give you a surprise? Alright then. It is indeed a surprise. Having Shen Qingli's homecoming journey made it much more comfortable. I felt like I quickly returned to the Zhang family. I stepped forward and knocked on the door. My mom opened the door. She saw that I returned together with Shen Qingli. She was momentarily stunned. Then she happily greeted us. Welcome back. Long time no see. Xiao Chen hasn't caused you too much trouble at school, has he? My mom took my luggage while enthusiastically ushering me inside. How could that be? Xiao Chen is very sensible. Not troublesome at all. Shen Qingli chatted with my mom for a while. She turned around and knocked on her own door. In just 2 seconds, I was stunned by Aunt Shen's scream that made my ears tingle. My mom smiled with her lips pressed together. Look how happy your aunt is. Shen Qingli is back. It was beyond Uncle Shen and Aunt Shen's expectations. Even Shen Xinyue was surprised. She had a holiday earlier than us, but had to return a day later. The day Shen Xinyue returned, Uncle and Aunt specially organized a gathering. It has been said that it's been 2 years. The dinner party was missing Shen Qingli. This time both families must have a reunion dinner together. Shen Xinyue should go directly to the restaurant after landing. After dinner, everyone comes back together. The so-called reunion dinner. Everyone was present, but it wasn't as good as expected. Song Wai came along with Shen Xinyue. This was unexpected for everyone. The two families of 8 sat together. The atmosphere was very awkward for a moment. My parents saw Shen Xinyue and Song Wai. Their smiles instantly faded. They politely greeted each other and then didn't say much more. Uncle Shen and Auntie's expressions were very bad. Especially Aunt Shen. She kept stealing glances at me and my mom. The awkwardness and annoyance on her face couldn't be hidden at all. I admit that even now, 2 years have passed. It's better that I don't see her. The moment I see her eyes that I used to be infatuated with, there are still some indescribable feelings in my heart. Shen Qingli is sitting next to me. She keenly noticed the changes in everyone's emotions. She also saw my ambiguous expression because the two of them appeared together. She quietly held my cold fingertips, which suddenly jolted me awake. I heard Shen Qingli's pleasant mature voice. If you're not happy, don't force it. Do you want to go out for a walk? I smiled and turned my head to see her slightly shake her head. I'm fine. The dishes quickly arrived. Uncle Shen urged everyone to start eating. Everyone responded and started to eat. The 4 elders all had distinct expressions. Eating quietly. Shen Xinyue broke the silence. She served a piece of tea to Song Wai. Song Wai. The fish head from this restaurant is delicious. You should try it. It's just the recommended fish head. But they served broccoli instead. It seems that Shen Xinyue isn't as calm as she appears. Song Wai didn't eat from his bowl. Instead, he was staring at Shen Qingli. Xinyue. Is this Shen Qingli? Shen Xinyue paused while picking up food. She glanced at Shen Qingli before speaking. Yes, this is my sister. A graduate student from Linda University. The same university that Hao Chen attends. Hao Chen. Song Wai is going to Linda for an exchange program. Didn't you introduce her to Shen Qingli? I was momentarily taken aback. The food I just put in my mouth got stuck. It was lodged in my throat, not going up or down. Here she comes again. Again, it's an unreasonable accusation. I was just about to retort. I replied. Shen Qingli pressed down on my hand resting on my lap. She spoke with a cold face. Is it Song? Why did Hao Chen bring him to see me? Everyone and anyone wants to see me. I'm sorry. I don't have that kind of idle time. Song Wai's original intention was probably want to enhance the relationship with the Shen family. However, Shen Qingli didn't give any chance at all. Her face instantly turned awkward. Shen Xinyue saw Song Wai's extremely restrained expression. No, heartbroken to the point of being unable to bear it. She slammed the chopsticks on the table. Sister, how can you say that? Song Wai is my boyfriend. It's not just any random person. HMPH. Apparently, he is your boyfriend. That's elementary school. Why didn't you even say hello to me when you went to Linda? You don't look at me, your sister, at all, do you? This hat is worn high. Shen Xinyue obviously knows she's alone. One person's power is insufficient to oppose the whole family. After weighing it, I decided to show first. Maintaining, she pulled Song Wai's hand and said, Song Ya, let me formally introduce you. This is my sister, Shen Qingli. Sister. I'm sorry. It's my fault. I don't blame Song Wai. Shen Qingli glanced at Song Wai from the corner of her eye. Throwing down the napkin in her hand, she said, I heard there's a sea king named Song Wai in Beicheng. I wonder if it's a common name. Hearing this, Song Wai's expression changed dramatically. Mom and Dad pretended not to hear the conversation over here. The two of them whispered about whether to add minced garlic to the broccoli. Uncle Shen and Aunt Shen sat in silence with gloomy faces. Shen Qingli and Shen Xinyue faced each other in silence. Meanwhile, I lowered my head and quietly ate my meal. This meal is truly exhausting. I was just in a daze thinking. Song Wai suddenly looked over at me. His gaze was sharp like a knife, filled with intense hatred. It can be understood with just a little thought. He must have thought I told him about the cheating to Shen Qingli, but I have never complained. However, it makes sense that Song Wai suspects me. Those things he did at Linda, only I know. The atmosphere at the dining table was unusually heavy. It made people very uncomfortable. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have come to dinner. It feels pointless. After greeting both sets of parents, I just went out. I don't know what happened after I left the table. In the end, this reunion dinner ended unhappily. After getting home, my mom and dad were whispering to each other in a corner. They seemed to be hiding from me, afraid I would hear. The little incident that just happened at the dining table. I have no interest in digging deeper. It couldn't possibly have any effect on me. Later, Shen Qingli told me. That day, Song Wai was forced to leave the table midway, then returned to the home in South City. Later, Song Wai and Shen Xinyue had a fight. Shen Xinyue said she would go to his house, which eased their relationship. But Shen Xinyue's parents didn't like Song Wai at all, so they kept Shen Xinyue locked up at home and wouldn't let her go out. Because of this incident, it seems that my family can't celebrate the New Year with the Shen family this year. My mom said they hadn't planned to celebrate together this year anyway. They just hadn't found an excuse to decline at the moment. New Year's Eve dinner on Little New Year. For the first time in 20 years, our two families are eating separately. I don't know what the Shen family is like. In any case, our family of 3 is quite happy. Mom brought all the dishes to the table. Dad opened a bottle of red wine. He poured a glass for me and my mom. I picked up my glass, just about to say a few words to liven up the atmosphere. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. I put down my glass and walked over to open the door. I thought it was Aunt Shen coming to find us again. I opened the door without looking at who it was and just spoke. Auntie, our dishes are ready. Come in and have a taste. She calls everyone, Auntie. Where are the eyes? A sweet voice sounded with a hint of laughter and teasing. Shen Qingli entered without caring. Uncle and Auntie, I came to your house for the New Year's Eve dinner. My parents were quite happy to see Shen Qingli come over. They quickly welcomed her. Welcome, welcome. How could we not welcome you? Sit down quickly. Little Chen, get the utensils. At the dinner table, Shen Qingli kept talking to my dad. Mom said how outstanding I am at school. She said my painting was used by the professor as a demonstration and presented in class. She said I earned nearly 20 gigs on my own. After the meal, Shen Qingli had my parents laughing joyfully. They couldn't stop serving her food, as if she were their own daughter. Instead, I could only sit beside as a backdrop. I also had to play the role of a minor assistant, occasionally taking this and that. After dinner, the 3 of them were still chatting happily. I walked into the kitchen holding a large pile of bowls and chopsticks. After washing all the dishes like a cow or a horse, only then did I let out a long sigh of relief. Just as I stepped out of the kitchen, Shen Qingli suddenly stepped forward. I could only see in front of me that face that was so beautiful it evoked anger from both people and gods. It was less than 5 centimeters away from me. I could clearly see her long eyelashes gently trembling. Her translucent red lips were slightly pursed. I had never been this close to any opposite sex before, not even with Shen Xinyue. My heart couldn't help but beat wildly. I was incredibly flustered. I had to try hard to lean my head back. As a result, I exerted too much force. The back of my head bumped against the doorframe. It hurt so much that I exclaimed, ouch. Shen Qingli smiled lightly, pursing her lips. She took a tissue out of her pocket. She gently wiped the sweat from my forehead. It has opened so many. You must be exhausted. Xiao Yuan. You're really very diligent. I scratched the back of my head with my right hand. Shen Qingli smiled even more happily, like a red rose blooming in the dark night. Xiao Chen and Xiao Yuan. I almost forgot what the night market near home looks like. Can you accompany me to look around? I nodded. Of course, I can. Seems like it's because she hasn't been back for a long time. Shen Qingli, who used to dislike taking photos. She was holding her phone and constantly taking pictures the whole way. Occasionally, she would even turn on the front camera to take pictures. But every time she wants me in the frame to pose with her. Passing by the front of a large shopping mall. The performance was just about to start on stage. We arrived a bit late and stood on the outskirts. I can't make out what exactly is being performed on stage. Shen Qingli stood on the periphery, looking for a spot with fewer people. Occasionally, she would raise herself on her toes. She looked adorably naive with a bit of a contrasting charm. I glanced at the stage and then at Shen Qingli, saying, Sister Qingli, do you want to watch this play? Shen Qingli looked at me and nodded. She softly murmured an, UHHUH. As soon as I finished speaking, I suddenly took Shen Qingli's delicate hand. I pulled her into the crowd. We squeezed our way to a spot very close to the stage. Turning back inadvertently, I found myself locked in Shen Qingli's tender gaze. She was staring at me, completely still. The tenderness in her eyes resembled a vast ocean. It completely enveloped me. She said nothing at all. She simply gazed at me that way. Yet it felt as though she had said all the sweetest words. I understood every word without her having to say them. My heart suddenly began to race. In the evening, I took Shen Qingli home. My cheeks slowly warmed up. When I got home again, it was already past 10 o'clock. After washing up, I lay in bed with a chaotic mind. To endure being called shameless by others once. Shen Qingli's gaze at me is becoming more intense. Sometimes I misinterpret that kind of. The meaning contained in her gaze is affection. But she is my Qingli sister. How is that possible? I must have seen it wrong. That year, Shen Xinyue called me shameless. I just realized she sees me as her neighbor's big brother. It's because I misunderstood her feelings. Only to get scolded so badly. Now, I know I can never again. I wonder if it's my illusion. So I don't dare to guess. I don't even dare to believe it. If being the neighbor's little brother is the way to ensure I never get hurt, I think I'm willing. At this moment, my phone notification sounded. I opened it to find a message from Shen Xinyue. Are you having fun? I was a bit puzzled by her question. But I still replied with, yes. Yes, I replied. Are you and my sister together? I questioned unhappily. Who am I with? Does it matter to you? After a while, she sent a large paragraph of messages again. You're not suited for each other. A person like my sister is arrogant and proud. How could she really like you? You shouldn't ruin your life just to get back at me. You'll waste your own life. Why don't you break up with my sister? I was left speechless upon seeing this message. What exactly does Shen Xinyue want by saying this? Although I'm not dating Qingli, Qingli just sees me as a younger brother from the neighborhood. But I still replied to her. That's my business. That concerns you. After sending this message, I instinctively opened the red dot on my moments. The first post was indeed from Qingli. This spring festival is no longer quiet. There are many pictures below, all taken during a recent shopping trip. A few photos of Shen Qingli and me stand out. And below in the comments, Shen Xinyue replied with 3 question marks. I looked at this post a few times, and felt there was nothing wrong. Maybe Shen Xinyue misunderstood. So I didn't think much of it anymore. I closed my phone and shut my eyes. This winter break, I basically spent it with Shen Qingli. During the day, she would come to my house and sometimes share knowledge about traditional Chinese painting. At night, I would be dragged by Shen Qingli to go shopping. One time when I was taking Shen Qingli home, suddenly, I heard Shen Xinyue's voice from the second floor window. Hey, brother Chen. I raised my head slightly to look at her. Shen Xinyue was wearing pink pajamas. She looked somewhat haggard. If it were before, I might have felt a heartache. But now, I waved at her without any emotion. Then I turned around and left. All I could hear was the sound of someone knocking on the window behind me. Until the Lantern Festival. Because Song Wai returned to his school in Kyoto early. So this year, Shen Xinyue would probably have to go alone. My arrangement with Shen Qingli was to eat first. Then go to the amusement park. Finally, go to the square to see the lanterns. Before we set off, Aunt Shen came to find us. She said Shen Xinyue had stayed at home for a holiday. She had been alone for too long. She wanted to play with us. Although Shen Qingli was not very willing. But after all, she was her little sister. We couldn't just leave her behind. So we had to take this burden along with us. By the time we arrived at the amusement park, it was already close to 6 in the evening. But since it was a holiday, there were still many people in front of the amusement park. Mostly young students. While standing at the door. During this holiday, Shen Qingli, who took up photography, took out her equipment. She asked Shen Xinyue to take a commemorative photo of me and Shen Qingli. Shen Xinyue pouted. Reluctantly, she took Shen Qingli's small camera and adjusted the focus. Just a short while later, I caught a glimpse of a familiar figure out of the corner of my eye. It startled me. That was Song Wai. The person beside him was Lin Mushui. I would remember her even if she turned to ashes. Across the street was a hotel. The two were walking in that direction. Lin Mushui had her arm around Song Wai's waist. They looked very close. So Song Wai hadn't returned to Kyoto yet. His words were just to deceive Shen Xinyue. In reality, he was going to meet Lin Mushui secretly. I have to say, these two wild lovebirds are really bold. Want to do something shady behind someone's back. Can't you walk a bit farther? Do you have to do it in front of so many eyes? Lin Shui wouldn't have come looking for Song Wai by now. The two have been together for a while. I turned to look at Shen Qingli. I saw she was also staring at those two. At that moment, Shen Xinyue looked at us and said softly, Sister. It's a bit backlit, hard to see. Let's change direction. As soon as I heard we were changing direction, I immediately jumped up like a rabbit, surrounding her from all sides to block her, not allowing Shen Xinyue to turn around. Unfortunately, plans don't always go as expected. Shen Xinyue suddenly froze in place. She ultimately saw it. I immediately broke into a cold sweat. I hurriedly looked at Shen Qingli. Oh. Shen Qingli gently patted my shoulder. She whispered beside me. Don't worry. Just observe the changes. Shen Xinyue seemed like a soulless puppet, staring blankly at the two of them for a while. Countless emotions surged in my eyes, finally transformed into a sharp roar. Shen Xinyue charged forward completely.